Well, hello there, folks. How's it going today? Hope you're all doing really good. I had one of the viewers request that I shoot a video on guitar strings, so I thought that was a really good idea. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm also going to talk about guitar picks at the end of the video and just my thoughts on, some different types of picks. And I'll explain the ones that I like to use and maybe the reasons why. So let's get into the strings first. Before all these strings come out, now we have all kinds of different gauges, different brands, different metal compositions that they're made from. It's really changed, So back in the day, they were just heavy gauge strings, and guys would like take the bass string off, put the A string in its place, and jump all the other ones up, and use a banjo string. Like Black Diamond was the company that made them back then. So, uh, you know, thankfully somebody did that because now we have all kinds of different gauges of strings for our guitars, which is really nice. I play normally 9 through 42s or 9 through 46s on my electrics. Not all of them, but some of them I do use 10s on, and it depends on the scale of the guitar itself and also, on the fret size, fret wire size, that kind of stuff. So, some guitars I'll put a set of nines on and they feel like sevens, okay? And like I said, it could be the scale, it could be the fret wire size, there's different things that play a part in that. So, as a rule, though, I usually either play 946s or 942s. I used to play these a lot back in the day. SITs, Stay in Tune, great strings. I mean, pretty much back in the 80s, this is all I used was these and GHS Boomers, which are another great string. I always had good luck with those. Dean Markley was another good string back in the day. You could get the blue steels and, cryogenically frozen. And, that's when it started to really like nerd out with guitar strings, I guess. But I played a lot of those back in the day. Now, here's an old set of Gibson, strings here. These are just, I think these are all 11 gauge, maybe. I can't really remember. These are all the same size, though. And yeah, I think it tells you right there. There's a dozen B strings. Doesn't really tell you the gauge, but there they are in the original packages right here. And they are all B strings. I don't use them. These are pretty old, and you don't just see these anywhere anymore. Okay, that's the first package of vintage Gibson strings like that I've ever had. It's the only one I have, by the way. But so Gibson started doing this, and Fender too. I think after a while they figured out like we need to change strings. Ernie Ball was another pioneer. Okay, so SITs and GHS was pretty much my electric string choice, and Dean Markley's. I didn't play Ernie Balls back then much. Nothing against them. I pretty much use these exclusively on my electrics now. But I still will use these. These are a great string too. The EVH. These are 946. So you have the bottom's a little heavier. It's almost like a set of 10 gauge with 9 on the treble side. And I do like these. And on certain guitars, these are a go-to. Like I said, each guitar is a little different sometimes, Some of the F-hole guitars I have, like 335 style, I can play 10s on those too. But some of them feel really heavy to me. And it's usually not my fingering hand that it bothers. It's usually my picking hand because I play with my fingers and a pick, and my fingertips will get really sore playing heavy gauge strings. And that's really the only reason that I don't play tens, honestly, because it just hurts my fingers on my right hand. Other than that, I mean, I could probably snap an 11, bending a note. I mean, it's not that my right hand's, not strong enough or anything like that, or it's bothering my calluses. It's not that at all. It's all in my picking hand that really affects the gauge for me. So in any case, I'd like to just talk a little bit about, some of these inexpensive strings, for instance. Now, I was fixing a bass for a friend, and I was like, well, I don't have any bass strings, so I found these on eBay. They were really inexpensive, and the seller, as soon as I bought them, he sent me a message, and he said, I'm going to I'm going to double your order with no extra cost. I was like, wow, that almost kind of made me scared. I was like, okay, I appreciate it, but so in any case, he followed through, and I got whatever I ordered, a half a dozen things of them, and he doubled it anyway, same money. It's like, wow, that never happens on eBay. But anyway, I strung the bass up, and I tuned it up, and one of the strings had a buzz to it. And, I didn't think it was a defective string. I've never even had a defective string on a guitar in my life. So that didn't even come into my mind. I didn't really think there was such a thing. And I tore the guitar apart. I thought it had an internal buzz. I thought it was the saddle. I changed the saddle. I tried everything I could possibly think of. I worked on the bass, over the course of 2 days, off and on, and it was just driving me nuts. So the last thing I did is I changed the string, and it immediately took care of it. I just couldn't even believe it, honestly. And so anyway, then it all clicked. That's why the guy gave me double the order, because they were no good. Now, nothing against this company. I wouldn't recommend buying those. And, maybe just a couple sets if you wanted to try them. But what my whole point is, being a guitar collector, it's not cheap to string up 80 or 100 guitars, a couple times a year. It's expensive. There's no other way to put it. So, even in a smaller collection, it's not cheap, you know what I mean? So, I do try to shop for strings and try to get a good deal. But don't be fooled by these really cheap ones, and don't buy 100 sets of them, because you are going to be really disappointed. That's just my thoughts on that. There's another company called Donner, Donner. Those are on eBay as well, really cheap, and I have not had good luck with those. I bought a few sets to try them, and they were really, really junk. As a matter of fact, the treble E string, when I unwound it, it was like a slinky. It wouldn't straighten out. It was just wound. And really chintzy. So try to stay away from some of them. The Chinese ones are not that good, and they are cheap, but to each his own. If you want to try a set, go for it, but don't buy 100 sets thinking you're going to restring your whole collection with them. You might regret it. That's all I'm getting at. So these were good strings too. Now, I don't think they make these anymore. I bought these from a guy online that had some new old stock. These are great strings. Again, these are 9 through 46s, so they're a little heavier on the bass side. Great strings though. Diodario's, we all know what those are. I mean, everybody plays them. Most famous people play them. They don't even consider any of it. They just, yeah, I play Diodario. Even if they're not sponsored by them, I see a lot of pros still use them. I like the Slinkies over Diodarios personally. There's not a ton of difference, don't get me wrong, but I do like these better. Or these. These are great strings too. Or the EVH. These Dunlops are good. These are those wild, whatever they are. These are 10 through 46 as well. And they make some like heavy core strings too. They're really stiff feeling, but I think they're more geared towards like metal players and so on. So usually I use these. I will play Diodarios, EVH, SITs, Dean Markleys. Again, I try to shop around, and sometimes I won't buy. I'm not going to buy 100 sets at a time. I am going to look into buying bulk strings here, though, in the future. It is cheaper that way, but again, it's sometimes I'd rather have a different gauge on a certain guitar. So I really don't want 100 sets of 9 through 42s, which yeah, I would use them, but again, I have to look at it that way. It's not cheap to string up a ton of guitars anymore. So I just try to keep 10, 12 sets of those on hand all the time. And then I at least have a gauge that's pretty typical for me to use. And again, I will play 9 through 46s on some guitars too, and even 10s. The next gauge I want to try is the 9.5s that Ernie Ball makes. I think that might be a good fit for me. And I'm going to try those because if those work good on a guitar that I usually would have 9 through 42s on, I could put the 9.5 set on, and that might work well on the guitars that I was going to put 10s on. You see what I mean? So I'm trying to find a gauge that will kind of bridge the gap on the guitars that I own. Now, these are some acoustic strings that I bought really cheap on eBay. 10 through 48, okay? They're acoustics. Now, I use these extra lights. Those were a good deal. They're not the greatest acoustic guitar string you're ever going to put your hands on, but for the money, they were pretty good. And, as little as I play acoustic, the strings will go dead on me just from age, not play wear. They kind of go dull sitting around, even if they're brand new and you put them on 3 months ago and then you take it out of the closet, it's not going to sound like brand new strings, which is good sometimes because I don't like them too crispy and bright, especially for recording. I'd rather have them dulled down a little bit. So, I don't buy super expensive acoustic strings, and I do use these extra lights on quite a few of my acoustics. Not all of them, though. It's the same kind of thing. Now, if I put these on a Dreadnought, they're just too thin. They don't have the diameter to increase the vibration and move more air and push sound out. So, on a thin line or an acoustic electric or something like that, I use these exclusively. And on my older instruments especially, that's what really got me going on these was, putting heavy gauge acoustic strings on a vintage acoustic is not good. It can really, it can be done, but it's just a lot more tug on the top, on the bridge, everything. So, in my opinion, but don't get me wrong, I know what 13 gauge acoustic strings do to a Dreadnought. They're a ton louder, There's a lot more tone going on, but for what I do, these work great for me in most cases. Now, on a dreadnought, I'd rather have like an 11 gauge on the treble string, even a 12 on some of them, but 11 seems to be okay. It feels like there's enough resistance there, and it's louder, louder than these would be. But I'd still use these on, my acoustic electrics, my thin line acoustics, and on my vintage ones, I usually just run those. Just because, I have like a vintage Gibson LGO acoustic that belonged to my grandfather. It's a small guitar, it was like a student guitar. 13 gauge strings on that is gonna pretty much fold the guitar in half eventually. It's just too much for it. So I like putting these on there. It sounds good, plays nice. You can play anything. They're 10 gauge strings. It's just a wound G, but you can bend notes. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with them. So basically, that's in a nutshell what I like to run for strings. Now, I had some thoughts on stainless steel strings as well. Now, I know a lot of people use them when they put stainless fret wire in because the stainless fret wire will chew up a regular set of strings really quick. And if you put stainless strings on a guitar that has just like regular, frets in it and not stainless, it'll eat the frets up quick too. Now, I have played some guitars with stainless frets. It didn't really feel that much different to me. It sounds a little brighter to me, possibly, but they do last. But you're gonna eat a regular set of strings out pretty fast, or faster, I should say. But there is something about stainless strings that I haven't heard anybody mention yet. Now a magnet won't stick to stainless, right? So is that going to help out with the magnetic pull from the pickup with the strings going over it? Well, I'm thinking it probably would. So, that could be a pretty big advantage on certain guitars, Big humbuckers or a Black Beauty with 3 big PAFs in it. I mean, that sucker's pulling them strings hard, right? You got a lot of magnet, and it's just 3 big pickups. So even on a 2 humbucker guitar, it can be, a little different too. So them are just some thoughts, guys, and I just wanted to kind of go through some of that. Now, I would like to talk about picks a little bit. I use these a lot, these kind of like Delrin, Tortex. These are Snarling Dogs, maybe, or whatever. Oh, those are Dunlops. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, the Gators. Now, I play pretty heavy picks. I really do. To me, it's just a technique that I kind of developed. Instead of letting the pick, bend like this over the string, I like the stiffness of it, and I just kind of take the recoil out with my fingers and thumb, and my grip with the pick. So I do play a heavy pick a lot of times on electric and acoustic, but on acoustic I like to use like a Clayton. I really like these picks. These are great picks. Or just a standard Fender, because of its plastic. It's got that kind of comb, thwacky sound that really makes an acoustic kind of bright. Now, in my opinion, the acoustic thing is really where picks can really change the sound. If you think about it, this is your EQ on an acoustic guitar. If you play with a big heavy pick that's made out of that Tortex or Delrin, it's going to be a deader sound, which could be great in some cases. But if you're looking for that nice, crispy, bright acoustic sound, these probably aren't the pick for you. Now, that's why I wanted to point this stuff out. Like, when you're recording, sometimes if you got a hi-hat going, maybe a shaker in the song, and an acoustic, you might not want that acoustic really bright, and you may not want to use a Fender, kind of plastic pick, a celluloid, or whatever that is. You may want to use like the Tortax Delrin. Here's a pick with some grip on it. It's got these little things that you hold on to. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm just not. I'm always manipulating my pick or tucking it like this. It just feels odd. I suppose you could get used to it, and if you are losing your grip, if you're getting like carpal tunnel or something, these ain't a bad thing. Now, like I said, I use a lot of different heavy ones. Here's one. These are big stubbies, and it's kind of dished out right here, but they're kind of rounded over, and this is really heavy. But again, I don't cut through it. I just kind of let my fingers, I loose grip the pick, and it just kind of wobbles in my grip, and that takes the shock out of it for me. I like the little jazz picks too. I go all over the place with picks, folks. Really, here's one that I cut down. I've been doing that for a long time too. Cut them down so it's like a jazz pick. And, you can still play with the shoulder. I just kind of, I don't know. It's day to day, guitar to guitar for the most part, as far as me with guitar picks. There's all kinds of gimmicks out here. Here's another gimmick one. It's got a dished out spot and a grip. And it's really thick where you hold it and pretty thin where it hits the strings. I don't know. It's like I said, I played Fender mediums pretty much all my life, the old kind of tie-dye looking ones, and like these. These were a big deal in the 80s and 90s or whatever. That you guys probably remember them. They were everywhere. I probably still have some kicking around in the dryer or something, washing machine. That's another weird thing. I noticed these kind of Delrin Tortex ones, once they go through the washing machine and you dry them, I think it even makes them a little stiffer, a little harder. In any case, like I said, I move all over the place with picks. It's like I said, guitar to guitar, and it depends on the situation a lot too. If I'm recording, I may try several different combinations of picks just for a certain sound. So anyway, folks, I don't want to go too long on this, but I hope this helps. Let me know your thoughts on the strings and what you guys like to play. And, the reasons for it is always helpful too. Helps out the other viewers just know why you do it and why you like a certain brand or a certain gauge. I'd be curious to know too. I mean, I'm not just stuck on any brand or any gauge again, so, it's kind of, instrument to instrument, like I said before, but, probably my go-tos are going to be these ones right here. The EVHs are good, Diodario, Slinkies, SITs. Acoustics, if I string up my Dreadnought, I do like Martin Marquis strings. I've played those for years. Those were always a great sounding string. Phosphor bronze. But, again, I don't play a lot of acoustics, so I hate to buy an expensive set of acoustic strings, string it up, and not play it for a month, and then they're just kind of dead anyway. You know what I mean? So anyway, folks, I hope this helps you out, and let me know, like I said in the comments, what you guys run for strings. I'd be kind of cool just to hear everybody's input, picks too. That's always helpful information for people, for sure. Well, thanks again, folks. We'll see you guys real soon. Be good. Okey doke.